Welcome to the Approach podcast. I'm Cassidy Gates, founder of the Approach and creator of the Soma and Semantics practice. This is a place where curiosity comes first. Together, we explore the science of behavior, communication, somatic practices, consciousness, leadership, and the patterns that shape how we think, speak, and live. Each conversation is an invitation to look through a different lens, not to tell you what to believe, but to give you ideas worth examining. At the Approach, we believe the body primes, words cast, actions create. Whether you're here to challenge your perspective, deepen your understanding, or simply become more intentional in how you move through life, we thank you for listening. Now let's begin today's conversation. This is Cassidy with the Approach. Today I have Felicia with me. Um, this was kind of a uncoordinated event. We got to talking and decided we were just going to go ahead and do a podcast and see how it goes.
I love
Felicia,
it.
would you like to tell us a little bit about yourself?
Well, first off, hi, Cassidy. Thank you for having me. My name is Felicia Linsky. I am a transformational consultant and well-being whisperer. I have had a career in Hollywood as an award-winning makeup and hair artist for over 3 decades. And I'm a mindful intuitive who survived 6 bouts of cancer and now help others, you become the best version of yourself. And what do I mean by that? I mean helping you learning to put yourself first before everything else, so that it doesn't cost you your health, your career, your relationships, and your well-being. And what I find is that people don't listen to the whisper before the scream occurs. And so that is the work that I now do with people and help them to recognize these things and help them work and create maps and plans of how to achieve all the things in their life that they choose to achieve because of all my life experience and professional experience.
See, one of the things I was actually discussing with somebody earlier, because you said the whisper before the scream. Of course, I got to experience the scream, but the way I look at that is with the soma and semantics practices I do, the somatic work is listening to your body. It's going to start telling you first. So I started experiencing pain throughout my entire body, numbness and tingling going down my arms, and kind of putting that into intuitive words or bypassing your body trying to tell you things you're ignoring anyways is what I was doing was painful to me. And I was trying to numb it out instead of addressing the problem. So my body was telling me, hey, until the point it becomes so severe, it was like the scream. I was not listening. And eventually you will have to listen. Or some people don't ever, but the problem's going to continue and it's just going to grow.
100%. And that's the interesting thing about human nature is, you know, we want everything. We just think that things are just going to go along and just flow, and but the truth of the matter is we are all going to be faced with moments, be it our health, be it our careers, be it our relationships, life moments that are going to put us in these moments in time. And it is our body that's going to be the first thing that we're going to have an experience with, that's going to be telling us, whether it's mentally, mindfully, spiritually, physically, that something is happening. And I think, unfortunately, so many people have found ways of numbing themselves that that is a form of ignoring. But the truth of the matter is, whether you're doing that or not, as you said, those things are still going to show up. So, what happened for me was 4 years ago this month. Um, I was on a film set, and this is going to be a very authentic share. But I was went to use the restroom. On a film set, you could work 15, 18-hour days, 80 hours a week. And so I'm in the middle of the desert filming. You get very little time to use the restroom. I went to go use the restroom and I noticed something on my panty liner. It was a little wet spot. Some people would say, wow, that's way too much information to be sharing. Well, I share this information because I'm lucky to be here. And that's why I share, because I want to help not one, but many survive. And so I immediately called my doctor and made an appointment. Most would potentially either ignore it, as we both discussed, or go to the pharmacy and get a pad or get a tampon and call it a day. I knew that my body didn't do what it was showing me. I didn't have pain. I didn't bloat. I didn't feel it happen. It wasn't like Felicia and Cassie are sitting around talking, laughing, and Felicia has a little excretion. No, it was none of that. I mean, I even make the running joke, I've been kegling since the cows came home. And for anybody who doesn't know what kegling is, that's working the inside muscles of, your vaginal and anal areas. And men and women can both do this and should do this to keep those muscles tight. And so, anyhow, I knew that this wasn't my body normally. So I made an appointment and I saw my gynecologist, who I very much trust and who's worked with me for years. And unfortunately, he made a comment that I found absolutely unethical. And that was, and I come from a pre med background, and he said, "Oh, Felicia, your vagina is just maturing." And I went, "Whoa, stop right there." I said, "If that's what you're saying to clients who come through here into your office when something concerning comes up, then women are not going to come in here and lives are going to be lost." Now, mind you, Cassidy, I didn't even know what I was dealing with, and I haven't even revealed it to you yet. But I didn't know. What I knew was that was unethical. And I literally turned the table and I said to him, "Dr. So and so, if I said to you, oh, your penis is just maturing, how would that feel to you?" Well, that's not me being sassy or me being rude. It's me trying to put him into perspective of an experience that he just shared with me. And I try to give him perspective of how that's relatable. Well, come to find out that I didn't know that I didn't know, that would take another 4.5 months to find out, was that little leak spot on my panty liners was the first sign of showing me and listening to the whisper that I was actually going to 4.5 months later, after being misdiagnosed for 4.5 months, that I would be told I have stage 3 ovarian cancer. And that was the first sign. And I didn't ignore the whisper. And so I share this story not to upset or to make anybody nervous or uncomfortable. I share it authentically from my heart because I'm alive. Whereas most women don't survive ovarian cancer because it's found out too late. And there's no test for ovarian cancer anywhere in the world because women's research and funding is on the lowest part of the totem pole in the medical community. And so, for a woman like me to survive, that's why I'm now doing the work I'm doing, which is listen to the whisper before the scream occurs.
That was beautifully said. What I find so interesting about all this, because I really want the audience to be aware of this, the majority of the people I connect with and talk to on these podcasts have a medical background. And we all seem to be leaning to the same thing. I believe when we all started, it was more like that. We listen to intuitive. We listen to the person because they know the body, their own body more than we do. Somewhere along the way, with excessive science, excessive protocols, excessive regulation, we bypass that. And it's causing a lot of misdiagnoses. Listen to that person, they know their body. And thankfully, some people are coming around to actually listening to their body again. You have to advocate for yourself. And by doing that, you are advocating for others. I have a picture that I was given, and it said, save many lives in your nurse, save thousands of lives. No, sorry. Save thousands of lives. You're a nurse. Save a few lives. You're a hero. And I was like, wait a minute. That's backwards to me because I feel like speaking and educating others, that's saving thousands of lives, not just a few you come in contact with. And it shocks me because I still have that picture and I look at it and I'm just like, I understand they're trying to encourage us, but that's backwards to me. I want to help a lot more than a few people, and I don't want to be censored or regulated while I'm trying to do it.
Yeah, and it's interesting that you say that, Cassidy, because I remember when I was diagnosed officially, I was a sign of health. I was I was healthy. I was training. I was a fit weight. I was strong. I was the sign of a sexy, healthy, viable female who was doing great work in my workplace, in my career, in my home life, all the things. I had everything going for me. And what's so interesting is that when I found this out, very few people knew, and I had to do very quick advocating. And you said it, and I teach this all the time. You must be your own best advocate, whether it's for yourself or your loved ones or the people that you care about. Because what people don't realize is when it comes to the medical world and the medical experience, 9 out of 10 times you're going to be thrown into it like it's a fire. Well, how often do you experience a fire? Hopefully, never, outside of sitting around a campfire for the joy of it. But so when you're in a medical situation, it is it is now an environment that most people entrust others to guide them versus driving the vehicle yourself. And what do I mean by that? I mean that as much as I love and care for the doctors that I've and nurses and nurse practitioners and all healthcare workers that I've worked with, the bottom line is everybody is still a human being. And as I say about doctors, doctors are students of science. They're not God. They don't have every answer under the book. They aren't the end all be all know it all. They studied a specialty in most cases, and that's where their focus lies. So even if they're the best of the best in OBGYN, gynecology, oncology, or they're the best in dermatology or ear, nose, and throat, or in cardiology or urology, unless they're really a world renowned, like wide open, think on a bigger picture kind of way of being, they're very focused on the one thing: urology, dermatology, ear, nose, and throat, in the thing that they're specializing in. They're not thinking about a whole picture. They're not thinking about, or they're not necessarily skilled in all those ways. So you as a human have to really stand for your well-being. And this is again what has driven my consulting business to help people pay attention to that whisper, to listen to the intuition, because the whisper is your intuition, it's your guide, it's your gut. And it's unfortunate that people have become so overwhelmed by the noise in the world that they don't trust themselves anymore, or because they haven't been believed going through things, they no longer feel they can speak up, or their light's been so dimmed, or they've been so disregarded by society or the community that they're a part of that they feel like they don't even have the kind of support that they need. Well, here's what I'm here to tell you: if that space isn't helping you, there are other spaces out there that will. It's a matter of just keep going, speaking up. So for me personally, nobody knew I had been diagnosed. It wasn't until after my surgery. And that was the plan when we found out, thank God it hadn't spread beyond where it was self contained, that we were able to go in and have the surgery done. And it was at that point in time, I remember I was working with somebody who said, document everything because you never know how that's going to serve others. And so I would start to talk stream of consciousness into like just recording myself. And the day I was being released, which was very quickly after my surgery, I had somebody who came in asking if, in hospitals, as you know, Cassidy, there's, depending upon certain hospitals have certain religions, some are more neutral, and there's always going to be people who are there to bless over you or there to guide, give you a prayer, whatever. And that was offered to me, and I welcomed this person into my space. And as she and I were sitting there, and having this really prolific conversation, she literally said to me, "Who are you? You're not even talking about yourself. You're talking about how you can help everybody else." And I said, because if this can happen to me, who knows how to advocate, who has been healthy, who has been this really, virile kind of existence and educated and all the things, then how many people is this happening to that have no clue? I need to get this out. I need to, and this was not who I was. This was not like, oh, go public and go on social media and talk about these things. No, that was the farthest thing from my reality, a matter of fact. That was the farthest thing. But I knew that I had to have a I knew that this was my purpose. If I was being given this gift, if I was given this angel of a physician who's top in his field in a very short amount of time after finally finding out after being misdiagnosed that I could build this world renowned team just like that, then it was my job to wake other people up so that if I could have my life saved, maybe I could save one, if not many. So after speaking to this person who came in to bless me, I asked them if they would listen to something that I had just recorded. I hadn't even listened to it. And this was already after she had said, "Who are you? What, you're talking about everybody else but yourself. I've never in all the years working in the hospital ever met somebody like you." And I was humble and I was complimented, but I didn't really think much of it. And then I asked her again if she wouldn't mind listening to this recording that I had just done to say, does this make sense what I'm saying? Because I feel like I really need to be courageous and share this message. And so she willingly listened to it and she finished listening to it. And it was like an 11-minute recording. And she turned to me and went, Seriously? Like, you need to be doing TED Talks. You need to, like, the impact that you're making just with me alone is unbelievable. I can't imagine the many people's lives that you could touch and change. And that really humbled me and gave me the courage. And it was very interesting, Cassie, because it was probably within that hour I was getting ready to be effectively released. My husband had showed up. We were just waiting for pharmaceuticals to be delivered. And I said to my nurse and my husband, I just want to take one more walk around the hospital because, when you have major surgeries, as you know, you want to make sure there's no blood clotting and things like that. So you have to keep your body moving. So I just said, I'd really love to be able to just take one more walk around the hospital before we leave. Are you all okay with that? And they were like, yeah, absolutely. So as I was starting to walk down the hallway, I said to myself, Felicia, if not now, when? You've got to have the courage to share this story. You've got to have the courage to move the needle because you do not know who out there right now needs to hear this message and whose life you might save from them hearing you, knowing who you are. And it was at that moment I pushed the button and I sent it out. And the rest has become history in regards to like who I've become and the messenger I've become and the consulting that I now do for clients for, you know, health and business and relationships because I've lived life very fully.
See, mine was much like that, except for I was always asked, Cassidy, what are you going to do next? Because I would try to do so many different things because I was fighting doing the one thing I was terrified of. I was trying to express it in every outlet I could without doing what I was terrified of. So I had done candles, all kinds of crafts, put little snarky comments attempting to make people think on the candles for names. Um, I went down the yoga path and that did truly help me, but I wanted to combine it with other things because I read a lot of neuroscience, um, and thoughts and how words affect them, and I had to create my own version to accept it. But I did not want to speak, and it was much like yours is, well, I really want to help. Like nothing's going to happen on this scale. So I kept asking myself the same question: if I'm going to complain about it, then I have to do something about it. And that was started on a micro scale. And I've seen the things I was doing still wasn't helping enough. It was contradicting each other to, once again, if you're going to complain about it, you have to do something about it. And I had a friend ask me to come on to their show as a guest, and I did, and I loved it. And I was like, I got to let it go. I'm okay with humiliating myself. I'm okay with all of it because this is the only way I'm going to learn it. This is the only way I'm going to get the message out there to people. People are going to judge you no matter which choice you make. So just make the one for yourself. It's a choice to be miserable.
I agree with that, and it's a really great message to pass on because that is true. You know, people people judge out of insecurity, out of fear, things that don't even exist. That you know has nothing to do with you. And it's like they say, it doesn't matter what other people are saying or thinking. That's none of your business. And yet we do put these kind of even with those of us who study neuroscience or mindfulness or science of the mind and all that, we're still human beings. We have feelings. We lead with our feelings. We lead with our experience. And so it really is a matter of going, well, I survived through that. So just now take the next step. Well, I survived through that. So now take the next step. And I think it's a matter of really what we are both sharing is that we are examples of being courageous. We are examples of connecting to our truth. We are examples of showing up in a way that we want to help people. And how do we do it in the most powerful, transformative way? clearly you're a passionate individual who really cares, is empathetic, who has life experiences, who knows the difference between things that feel good versus doesn't, who's listened to the whisper and paid attention to those messages, just like me. And I'm sure there's a lot of listeners out there who can relate to this conversation very easily, or be saying to themselves right now, wow, I've been ignoring what's been going on and I can no longer ignore it. And hopefully for that individual, whomever is hearing this right now, if you're going through that, know that if we can do this, so can you. And I truly believe that is the reason why, I've been invited on today to have this conversation with Cassidy to empower as many people out there as possible, because we are living examples of moving the needle. We're living examples of walking through the fire. We're living examples of listening to the whisper before it becomes a scream. We're living examples of choosing our life purpose to be greater than that which we've already experienced for reasons that are calling us to be that leader, to be that light, to shine bright, to help be that beacon for others so that you can be the best version of yourself, because our lives all matter. It's not one culture or one age group or one socioeconomic or one religion. And hopefully that's not offending anybody. But if it does, well, I hope that you can sit with that and ask yourself why. Because the truth of the matter is, we're all made up of the same thing: organs, muscle, blood, bones, and a soul, and our spirit. And we got vesseled through individuals who hopefully were making really beautiful love on that moment and passed us through and put us out here to make an impact on the world. And the rest of it, is all up to us. And some things we don't have control over, and other things we do. But that what we do is consciously showing up in a collective way of being, of raising each other up for the better. And again, I don't care what belief system inspires you or that you hold near and dear close to your chest. At the end of the day, all we want is to be loved. At the end of the day, all we want is to be heard and seen. At the end of the day, all we want is to know that our time on this planet made a difference, that mattered, and that we have connection to others who care and that we care about. Because what are we doing here otherwise?
I speak about this a lot on words and how they carry stigmas, and it's took me a while to come to this point because things are highly judged. But like I said, it's just judgment. They're going to find something. So I've been reading about how an atom, which all things are created from, is energy.
Hmm.
And I've gotten down that path and been studying it, how we are all putting off energy, a frequency, a vibration. If you'll study your mind states, that you can, with meditation, breath work, you can actually alter the mind states. And there's certain mind states, if you can get into, you can actually work on your limited beliefs or anything that's been holding you back. What I ask people to do when they come to talk to me is I speak them through the meditation. But when they finally hit that state, after we've released all tension, all external noise, all external senses, and go in a space I call the void, um, and I have them think of the person they want to be, not without anything else. We are not thinking about any person's thoughts. We're not thinking about how we get there. We're not thinking about what anyone else would think. Just picture who you want to be. Picture the skills you want to develop. Picture what you want to be doing, and that is it. We're not focused on anything else. That is our intention. And then I have them, I want you to attach how you would feel as if you were in that moment living that life. How would you feel? You have to have that emotion to it. You have to create something to get you there and then have them come back. So it's recreating or cultivating that belief in you, that self trust that you can get there, and putting aside everything that's held you back. And it's it's simple, and we make it harder than what it is. We have very limited beliefs. I was not like this. Uh, I was very quiet. This, I've said it before, this would have never happened. And I kept working on it. I kept meditating. I kept picturing who I wanted to be, and I made those micro changes. And I continue to make those micro changes. And I continue to put myself in what was uncomfortable for me until it become comfortable.
Well, and piggybacking on that, I always say that our mind is our strongest organ in our entire body. You know, everybody strives for like this six pack, this cup muscle, string up your tushy, you know, kind of bikini wear. This is the muscle you really should be working on. This is the muscle that will make you unstoppable. This is a muscle that will eliminate all fear. This is a muscle that can move mountains. This is a muscle that, you know, creates your belief, creates your surviving and thriving and living fully a life because it all starts right here. That's why mindfulness is so important. You know, it's interesting how we have come up with these phrases like limited belief and, you know, scarcity mindset and all that stuff. You know, these were not phrases that were being used even a decade or two ago. Really. They just weren't. These are labels. It's a label like it's a label on your tush or your chest or a fashion label. It's just a label. It's not a reality. And we don't come into the world as these pure, getting back to energy, as pure source of energy, because that is all we are. Each one of us is like a star in the galaxy. And that's not woo woo talk, that's real. All we are is energy sourcing through us. And in our existence, we are connecting and flowing through the galaxy, doing this thing called life. And when you think about the galaxy and the stars and the moon, and when you take a moment to gift yourself looking up at the sky at night, that's your opportunity to see that as things shift, as things move, no different than the clouds or the rain or the seasons or whatever. Anytime you're stuck, think about that's not how the universe works. That's not how energy works. So, therefore, nor should you be stuck because that is you choosing, you choosing to stay that way. All it takes is getting up out of bed. All it takes is tying your shoes and moving your feet. All it takes is making an intended action going forward. And it's the little steps, like you referred to, Cassidy, that can move your needle. And for some, if you're dealing with like deep depression or chemical imbalance or overwhelm, I understand. I'm not saying like, oh, hey, go climb a mountain. I'm saying just one step, just one baby step. So let's go back to being a baby. Babies don't come out of the womb running a 26.2 marathon. Babies come out of the womb gazing at the ceiling and grabbing their toes and discovering just the immediate around them. That's what they're doing. They're not doing anything else. They're not asking themselves to solve world problems. They're just managing their space. And hopefully, their space around them is safe by the people around them who provided that space. But as they develop, that's when they start discovering I can roll over. I can start to scrunch up and get on these things called knees. I can use these things called my hands, grab my toes and put them in my mouth. I can grab that side of the crib and start to pull myself up. What we as humans forget is how basic and little these steps turn into big, achieving, monumental possibilities. And if we kept it really simple and kept the noise out and all the negativity onto one another, we could do masterful things on this planet, just like Mother Nature shows us every day, just like babies show us every day, just like the miracle of science shows us every day. We are surrounded by miracles every day. And it's a choice to open up your eyes, listen, lead with your heart, listen to your gut, and go out and consciously do good things for yourself as well as then for the bigger planet out there. And lead, a much happier, fuller life that you'll feel proud about. And I know that where we started into that is kind of like a big leap, but that's just how it works.
See, I
Just us
do
having
love how you explained that very much, the going from the baby and how you were talking about the mind being muscle. So you were just describing a baby. They learn their body first. Eventually, we learn to crawl with muscle memory, learn to walk with muscle memory, and now we're hitting that mind state that we're creating. We're taking small steps. Well, we're crawling first, and we're taking small steps, and we're creating that muscle memory within your mind. So that's one step. One of the things I started with, because a lot that holds us back is we love the familiar. We want everything to stay familiar. So I started parking in a different spot every day when I went to work. I would make little choices that was just different, not routine. I broke routine and I kept doing that, and it's grew over time. And that's where I keep going back to the I kept getting comfortable with the uncomfortable. I put myself in the discomfort until it wasn't discomfort anymore. We have to break familiarity.
It's also really great for the brain to move the car because it makes you continuously think. I mean, we all like to get comfortable, but there lies what can become our biggest hurdle. Because when you get complacent or comfortable, I'm not saying don't be systematic and don't be methodical or formulaic, but be willing to be the square peg in the round hole and push through into different spaces. You know, I love the practice of feng shui. And for anybody who doesn't know what feng shui is just another form of energy. It's a very old, old ritual of how space is. How space, when you walk into a room, you can either feel flow or you can feel it not a blocked energy. And I'm a believer of if you think about it, a lot of people set up their homes and they never move those spaces once they're set up. The kitchen table stays in the same place, the bed stays in the same place, the couch stays in the same place, and things just collect. The thing about feng shui is it's really important to move the energy around. One, to just get your space deeply cleaned. Two, to eliminate all the clutter so your mind can think and things can flow and things can come through to you. And it resurges the energy of creation. It resurges the energy of manifestation. It creates the energy of, again, possibilities. And, you know, when you park the car in the same place, I understand why you do that, because then you don't have to think about it after a long, hard day of work. That makes sense. It also makes sense to keep your brain really sharp and show yourself that this is one of many examples of how to stretch, how to achieve, how to take action, how that if you can, again, do this, you can do other things. You know, maybe it's, you didn't know that it was possible for you to save 10% and pay yourself first from, or 20% of off your paychecks, and grow an emergency fund. Or maybe it wasn't possible for you to do 10 push-ups, but now you can. Or maybe it wasn't possible to walk around your local block, but until you did, you didn't know you could. It's just, these are the little things that, again, whatever it applies to, maybe it's that you didn't know you're capable of boiling water or making a cup of coffee. So, what is it that you're doing today to challenge yourself, to overcome that you're capable of anything you set your mind to? And we all need to be reminded of this. This isn't like just, you and I sitting here, Cassidy, going, oh, well, because we've pushed through these things, therefore we're impervious. No, we're human beings. Every day, I'm sure, not certain, but certain that I can only speak for myself. There are plenty of things that I go, and then I go, girlfriend, really? Just, just go do it. Just go make it happen. Because through that, you get happily surprised with what all the gifts that present themselves. This is the perfect example. By my responding to something that you put out, I shared with you something about myself. We did our communication. We both followed through doing our part in this back and forth, like no different than like a tennis game. You volleyed, I responded, I hit back the ball, you hit back the ball, and now here we are. And here we are communicating, two strangers communicating very like minded thoughts, processes, having two experiences our lives, but being able to share energetically very powerful things that we both learned, that we both studied, that we both have been brought to this moment because source, God, timing, whatever, said we're bringing these two powerful women together. And I'm not saying, oh, we're powerful. I'm saying we're powerful. We're powerful because we chose to say yes to this. That's powerful. That's empowering. And what I'm saying this for is that hopefully, whomever is listening is motivated to be empowered to do the same kind of thing, to take that quote unquote scared action and do it anyhow. Take, as long as you're safe. I'm not saying don't do unsafe things. I'm saying do safe, but things you've never done before, do it, because you're only gonna gift yourself new possibilities. And this is the example of it. We are living here examples of that.
See, and I've been working on developing a framework um, to help explain it to people because I don't know what mindset some people's developed, not wanting to think, wanting the information to be fed to them. That's where I get back to you have to study yourself first. And you'll know what's best for you as you practice these things. And that's also where I keep coming back to it's a continuous practice. I fall off of it all the time, but I return to it. And it's not like you still grow. That's what you were talking about looking back, seeing where you are now. You still grow. Just because you fell off don't mean that you just completely took 4 or 5 steps back. It's just you swayed away for a minute. You have to learn how to return to the practice. You can start back from the beginning. So I keep doing the body primes, words cast, and actions create. So, body, studying your body, recognizing your body. I've had situations, I tense up, I feel my heart rate, and depending on what circumstance it is, it's, well, why am I doing that? So, recently I've had inappropriate, somebody have inappropriate contact and express something in a very disrespectful way. And same thing, I tensed up, heart rate, and I was like, actually, that's not acceptable. And I do not accept it because I do not have to. It's the discernment of, well, are they responding poorly? Is there a reason behind it? Could it have been done a different way? And choosing whether or not you should give them grace or if they've stepped too far and they're completely aware of their actions. It's everything's duplicitous. Everything has one side or the other. You have to decide for yourself which choice to make in that moment. And it starts by studying yourself, studying how you feel in your body, studying the words you've spoken, your thoughts, your actions, taking in all perspectives, and then you choose that action. So, body prompts, words cast, and actions create. And I'm expanding it as I go because you have to have disciplines, but you also have to be able to step away from routine. Everything is kind of like a balancing act.
Absolutely. And as students of life and formulas of education, like not formulas, but structured education, then you go into implementation. And implementation is where you find your own signature flow. So how do you put into action that what you've learned and then that what works for you versus what doesn't? Because we've all learned one and one equals two. Well, one and one is always going to equal two, and two times two is always going to equal four. But how four applies to you and four applies to me can be very different things depending upon what that's applying to and what that's referencing to. I think that in becoming who you're becoming is a constant. I don't think that that ever ends. And I think it's like, the old adage riding a bike. Once you've learned how to ride a bike, you always know how to ride a bike. Sometimes will be easier than others. Sometimes it may feel like you're just riding it uphill. Other times it may be like you're going downhill so fast you can't keep up with yourself. Sometimes it's just like going strolling right along, but you never forget how to ride it. And to your point, Cassidy, it's like starting with the body, you know. So in the last few years, I've thankfully now I'm in remission. And who and where I was a few years ago was, I was probably about 20, 25 pounds lighter than I am right now. Because after doing surgery and then chemo, then I went on a longer process of a chemo to thankfully I qualified for. I don't mean thankfully, but thankfully nonetheless. Thankfully I qualified to be able to have to hopefully stave off ever coming back. But the cost of that was your blood pressure can go up, weight can go up, blah, 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 and you try to like not lean into that. But those things actually did happen. And so thankfully my blood pressure's come back down to normal for me. And my weight, though it's stabilized, it's not where I want it to be. And I've always been physical consistently. It's all relative. Relative meaning I'm always walking a dog. It doesn't mean every day I'm lifting weights or every day I'm eating the smartest, but I'm doing my best in the moment. Sometimes I'm reacting out of emotions. Other times I'm very focused on what's right and well for me so that I can stay on point and stay on my goals. But I think what we're both saying is that being human is just that, being human. And that this is not about perfection, because perfection's another form of fear. It's not about procrastination. That's another form of fear. It's not about overwhelm. That's another form of fear. It's not about being busy. That's another form of fear. It's not about pleasing everybody else. That's another form of fear. It's about taking all that stuff away and just getting quiet with yourself and saying, how do I feel? What am I noticing? How is this connecting to who I'm here to be? What's working? What's not working? What can I shift to feel better, to be better, to get to move the needle? And how do I take and create momentum to move that needle forward? I like you, I this is how I teach my clients, and I call it whisper to power. That's my initial way in of working with me is whisper to power. And it's taking note of this stuff. And ironically, and it starts with the body. Because our body is the thing that we're most aware of, whether we think we are or not. Like, yeah, we know whether or not those pants are gonna fit. If you've been just wearing a bunch of stretchy leggings, or, you got to put that pair of jeans on to see where you stand, can you still get in them or not? Like there's reality and then there's living an illusion. Um, the truth of the matter is, this is kind of one big illusion we're all existing in. And then it's a matter of what we're choosing to make like really a grounded experience that we all get to share with each other, as I put it, around the campfire, like authentically, not bullshit, not narcissistically, not egocentrically, but authentically. Like, if this was your child, how would you feel? Would this be the best version of what you could provide them, show them, be for them, advocate for them, inspire them? What would that be? You immediately know what that is. Immediately.
And so today, I feel like we have so many external distractions. It really is truly hard to separate from that and listen to yourself. There's just too much, and that's why I say it's continuous practice. I fall off that and get distracted too, but there's so much external, um, so much insecurities spread to people, and so much separation too. It is actually a sell tactic to do the us against them mindset. That's an illusion. We're creating that belief, but you have to. I encourage people to do their own research and look into these things. It is kind of the time for us to become aware and start noticing. Just like that's how we start with ourselves. The first step is noticing yourself, noticing what's happening, and then you start moving through the rest of it, liberating, getting rid of what no longer serves you, cultivating what does, and then the continuous cycle of iteration. So we can do that within all things, ourself and the external environment. We don't have to believe that us against them mindset. We can open an understanding communication. We all might speak a different way, understand things differently by how we were raised. There's so many different factors that makes us different, but we can find that common communication.
100%. And, going back to what you just said at the beginning, there is so much noise. And we're now in a greater time of noise. I mean, the noise started, the noise has been going on a long time, but I'd say since the smartphone really got into all of our hands, I think roughly 2007 to 2009, like really, really got in our hands, like on a much bigger scale. And kids were being born into that time frame, and our world has become more, where this is the first addiction we all have. This is the thing we reach for, this is the thing we keep our face in, this is the thing that we don't even look at each other in the eye and have a conversation, hence the breakdown in communication. It's really interesting, and I am in agreement with you. It's interesting. Last year, I was at this time I was hired to train a group of staff, and I would say the average age was between 18 to 30 years of age. And I wrote a program called The Art of Mindful Leadership, and it was all about setting these intentions from the very beginning of this program. And it was going to be a 60-day program for the amount of time that they were working together, and how everybody was going to collectively choose consciously how to get in the boat, so to speak, and have collective goals that they all had to mindfully work on together. Not as individuals. Individuals will always have their own goals, but as a unit, as a business, as a framework. And how would they, from port to port, still be in the boat collectively, all winning, and everybody benefiting from all their actions taking course 60 days later? And my reason for bringing that up is because disconnection is so prominent in our world affairs. And because, as you put it, it's the them against us mentality. You're right. It doesn't have to be that way. If we all spoke up, like we both mentioned earlier, we've both been examples of speaking up. I believe it's really important to keep speaking up even when you feel like you don't have the right to, or you don't have the power to, or you'd be surprised when you start doing things like this. Like, Cassidy and I never met until today, ever. If it weren't for technology, and this is the good thing about technology, if it weren't for technology, we would never have crossed paths, potentially. Maybe we would. Maybe the universe would say, oh, I'm going to make sure these two women cross paths. But it's technology that has done us a service to cross paths, to be able to create this kind of conversation, to show the synergy of what's possible when two minds who care about sharing what they've learned, what perspective they've gained, how they can spread that encouragement, empowerment, inspiration. We are very powerful as a collection, as a collective. We can do really powerful positive things, or we can do really powerful destructive things. And I don't know about anybody who's listening, but I can't imagine that you create children for the sake of coming out of the womb to be destructive. Like that to me just doesn't make any sense. I don't care what your beliefs are, I don't care what you practice. No baby comes into the world angry and violent. They just don't. That's all learned. And maybe there are people out there who are just programmed to think that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to produce my offspring to create the next generation of that. But where does that get you? Doesn't do anything but harm and hurt. And hurt people. So instead, we have the power to turn off all the negative noise, to turn off all the negative influences, the not true statements, the lies, the deceit, the I'm going to say BS that we're being fed. And I'm not making political or religious statements right now. I'm just saying in the world right now it's like filtering through all of our ears is a lot of noise.
I mean, to me, it's the obvious, but also like I say, people don't want to be uncomfortable. So what you choose to tune out is what you choose to tune out.
It's also much easier to be a sheep and follow than to be a thinker and a leader. And let me just say for the record, be a thinker and be a leader. People need you to think and people need you to lead. People need you to, let's put it this way, if a house was on fire, would you lie on your back and allow the fire to engulf you? Or would you take the lead and get everybody out? Because when you think like that, when you think in a sense of a first responding kind of way, you're going to think in a way that's not only going to serve you, it's going to serve everybody around you. And here's the thing, there's a lot of noise out there right now where people are being led to believe things that have no value and no truth. And they're just following right along. And it's harmful. It's a very harmful way of existing. And that's why I always take it back to if this was your child, how would you feel? Because as anybody, whether they've been a parent or an aunt or a grandparent or a sibling, knows you're going to protect that child at all costs. It's a very basic way of being. Like, just take ourselves out of being humans. Now, take ourselves out into the tundra. Now, we're all animals. Lions protect their pack. All animals protect their pack. There's very few individuals that survive on their own. We all need each other. Nobody does this thing called life alone. No one hand washes itself, it needs another hand. The more we can come into this mindset of solving, healing, being of love and kindness, listening, being curious versus destructive versus shut down, disconnected, the better off we're going to be.
My biggest thing with that is how do you get people to that state? I know kind of the example you used with what would you do for your children? What would you want for them? That has been the biggest point I've been able to do it. It doesn't mean that these people didn't regress and go right back in that mindset. Because I've had a lot of people accept things that were completely unacceptable
Hmm.
and continue to do that.
Hmm.
And the biggest thing I've used to break it is okay, if that was your daughter
Hmm.
or if that was your son, would you allow them to be treated that way? And
Hmm.
it's immediate, like lights go off, like, absolutely not, never. I'm like, so why would you accept it?
So I have a personal belief system. I think our greatest violence unto one another is our domestic violence. And I think it's our greatest, biggest abusive problem on our planet is the harm we do unto others. And that harm goes from domestic violence to domestic terrorism to world wars. And I know that's a very extreme statement, but it's a truth. And you're speaking to somebody who comes from that experience. I'm a survivor of domestic violence from over 30 years ago. I lost 5 babies going through it, and I was never believed until I was finally had a protective order on my life for 3 years from the city I live in. And what I learned from all of that after studying with the best of the best was one, my biggest question was, how did I end up in that? How did I how did I personally end up in that? When I tried getting out of it as soon as I recognized it. I tried getting out of it within 4 months, and the pattern of the sociopathic narcissist and what they do and the lies and deceits and the honeymoon and all the things that we see on a bigger world platform right now that I won't get into, but that same energy, those same lies, that same bullshit continues to happen. And that is domestic violence. That is abuse. That is a very sick, toxic situation that comes through emotional abuse, physical abuse, spiritual abuse. And when people aren't believed that they're actually going through that, that is part of shutting people down. That is part of dimming your light. That's part of putting people into positions where then they stop fighting for their own well being. And when it comes to your child, would you want them going through this? No. Whether they're 5 years old or 55 years old. No. The mere fact that I survived what I survived, that I didn't have family around me because I lived in a city that my family wasn't around, and I never missed a day of work, and I never gave up my dogs, and a shelter wouldn't take me because I had 3 large dogs. The fact that I'm here, and then I went through 6 bouts of cancer after that and became an award-winning artist and all the things. There isn't anything you can't tell me right now, including on world platforms, what's going on. Now, here's the difference. What's safe to talk about versus what's not, that's where people try to challenge people. And we're
And
seeing a
that's
lot.
where I'm
Go
truly
ahead.
trying to come up with a statement of how to word this without going too far. You say, I don't know if you use the word dramatic or whatever, on how you worded it with the domestic violence, domestic terrorism.
Mhm.
So there's this concept, even with the frameworks you learn or the domestic violence wheel, everything has a micro and a macro.
Mhm.
And I don't know if you've ever heard of psychological warfare,
Mhm.
but that's definitely some things people need to be studying up on
Mhm.
in today's time because everything has a micro and a macro scale.
Mhm. Correct. And unfortunately, this goes back to listening to the whisper. People aren't paying
It
attention.
does.
People are going la 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 la. And because of this, people's complacency, people's not wanting to be aware, people's I don't watch the news, people's not, or the news is one big lie, or whatever they want to come up with to comfort themselves. Let me just say, I was a kid raised in a time that I was told, not because people are trying to fuel me with information, but history can always repeat itself.
It may look a little different, but it's still a repetition.
And
You
when
just have to open your eyes.
Yes, sorry, I didn't mean to overstep you. Yes, and when you study history, you see that history does repeat itself again and again and again. Most wars are led by leaders who are so narcissistic that God forbid their power be taken away. So they're going to do whatever they can to hold on to it. And by religion, those two things are the things that take down major points of history,
Have
major,
you heard of the Rockefellers?
of course.
So, which I believe all things are tools, including medicine, but we used to do a lot more holistic medicines from herbs, and then somehow I think somebody discovered mixing certain things with petroleum,
Hmm.
and I believe the Rockefeller family was actually over oil and everything at that time.
Hmm.
And then we've tended to go towards more prescription based medicine and a lot more away from herbs, if not nearly completely.
Hmm. Well, that's the whole, like, you know, pharmaceuticals. You're talking about the industrial age. You're talking about the creation of companies, the industrial era, of how companies came into becoming these factories and these ways of, being the one percenters. Like that started in the early turn of the century. Um, Hence the Rockefellers and all things. And,
And I do
that,
believe he was the one that wanted the education system to build workers. Is that correct? Is that was the same person?
yeah, I don't remember if that's him or not effectively, but there are definitely those, and he might have been one of them, if not the one who, and I don't want to be misquoting. um Listen, there's always been throughout the history of time, no matter where on the planet, there's always been those, again, leaders who always think that they're above, and they want to cloak their beliefs in, well, I'm doing this for your own good mentality. I'm going to give you this, but at the cost of something else, for their own leveraging, so that they can be up here and everybody else is down here. Does that make sense?
It does. And then
Uh,
sometimes I also do see their standpoint because I do believe in that time. Yes, maybe that's what we needed was workers, but it I feel like they went too far. They took away thinking. They made it too given to you. There was no you didn't need to think for yourself. And in today's age, we are overfed information. How do you even tell what's real at this point?
well, that's a whole nother level of. I think that I think there's a combination of things right now. I think that there's been a lot of great minds who have been stifled. There's a lot of great minds who've achieved a great amount of things, who've had every bit of their energy put into the categories that they focus on ripped out from under them, and destroying, like, really like powerful positive influences. And look, I'm all for, like, a lot of great things that have been done with science, but I also think that there's a lot of things in whether it's science or creation of products that have also been extremely destructive to humanity, and people have paid the price for it. And that's where, I'm not a conspiracy theorist, but I definitely believe that there are certain entities, there are certain companies, there are certain, We have a government that's got a system that have people in great deals of power that aren't even holding a title, but because of their leverage, just never pay the price for the harm that they've done for many, and you know, and they never will.
Yeah,
Or
and I
if they
can't, I
do,
mean, we
go
can't
ahead.
like, so one of the things I do try to keep in mind, even though I understand that statement very much, but sometimes I wonder if they're just so disconnected.
They
Yeah,
completely understand.
yeah.
I think that they are so cloaked in a protective order. I think that the fraternity really does exist.
I guess I guess that's kind of what I'm saying. It don't affect them as much. They won't hold that empathy if they've not ever experienced it.
Whether they've
And it's
experienced
not if
it or
it's
not,
not affecting them.
whether they've experienced it or not, directly, indirectly, I think that there are I definitely think that there are individuals who protect one another, because if one goes down, they all go down for all different reasons karmically.
And I'm trying to think how you worded it. So, like you said, we've made plenty of advancements.
Mhm.
And that's one of the things I'm saying is it's a constant balancing act because each thing has good and it has bad. That's why I
Mhm.
try to picture everything as a tool, but then it also comes back to you being able to discern,
Mhm.
to educate yourself, or
Mhm.
how does it actually make you feel? Are you bypassing how you feel to follow everybody else?
And that's a question that only one can consciously, make a decision on. I'm not inside of you, and I don't have your moral. I don't walk inside of you, just like you don't walk inside of me. But I do know that each and every one of us, for every rock in the water, there is an effect. For every cause, there is an effect. For every action, there is a reaction. And I do believe that not everybody lives their life in that consciousness. And I do believe that there are some people who truly are so disconnected from their feelings, i.e., why sociopathic narcissism has become such an inevitable reality in our lives today. And a conversation, again, like we were talking about limited beliefs and scarcity mindset earlier in our conversation. You didn't hear the conversation about sociopathic narcissists until quite recently either. But we have exploded sociopathic narcissists in our society. This level of disconnection and entitlement to the point of, I don't care what I do and how it harms you, because this is what I want. This is who I am. This is how I operate. And I'm cut off from my emotions. So it doesn't matter what I do to you because it doesn't affect me. I don't pay the price for that because I'm disconnected from my feelings. And I truly believe people are chemically wired that way, or there's so much harm that's been done onto them, they've become that way. But I truly believe that that is what we're paying the price for as a in a world and on a world level right now. Which is why it's so important to be sources of light. Why it's so important to have conversations like this, the willingness to just have open communication, discussions that aren't like being fed into you in a way that this is how you have to think. This is a thought process. Does that make sense?
Yeah, a discussion. Kind of like one of the things I'm developing. Um, I call it facilitation because that's all I'm offering. It's just to facilitate you
Hmm.
because what's going to work for me, what works for you is not going to be the same. I'm just giving you information, experiences just giving you something to facilitate the process, to kind of guide and let you decide for yourself. Because
Right.
we've gotten really bad with following along with everybody else, um, taking on their beliefs, taking on how it should be done through their eyes, and not having that separation, that authenticity, the thing that actually helps with growth.
I agree. I agree. And I agree that, you know, so when I was just sharing, one of the things to look at, you can go to church or temple or a mosque or whatever, and have a really beautiful experience, and have your beliefs, shared amongst many, and um and find solace in that. My question would be, if you didn't know it to be any different, and this is a challenge of a question, if you didn't know it to be any different, if that did not exist in your life, what do you think you would do to find that source that wasn't put in front of you to say, this is this is who I follow, this is what I believe? Because that is fed to many people. And they don't really think about what they're being fed or what they're saying or repeating back. They have no idea. It's just mimicking like two birds. They have
And so
no
that's where that
idea.
that disconnection, you have to
Mhm.
disconnect to reconnect.
Mhm. Absolutely. And I also think that people haven't been taught that they have the opportunity to actually have the freedom of choice. And let's face it, this to me is a truth. This is a first world discussion. There are many people right now just trying to find a droplet of water and a roof to have over their head and how they can pay their bill.
And I've
So
had
I'm
people in a rough time, I've had them say, break it down to the bare minimum. Do you have a roof over your head? Do you have something to eat? You're fine. And that's kind of like we stay in that for some reason, even though this is a first world problem, for some reason, we stay in that scarcity mindset. Break it down. We are safe, a lot safer than most. Remind yourself that you're safe. I mean, even if something happens, there's usually a shelter, there's somewhere you can go. But that's unacceptable for some people. We have a lot more than most.
Oh, we have a lot more than most. But then my question would be, and how can you create more to help more? How can you be of impact to lead? It's okay. So let's talk as two women. As two women, it is historically notorious that no matter how successful women are, whether they create it themselves or they marry into it or they're born into it, will 9 out of 10 times end up having less of it. Not because they don't know how to manage it, but because here's why. Women don't live a straight line of, like, you grow up as a little girl, you hopefully have the opportunity to get exposed to an advanced education or opportunities to develop yourself in the skill set that you desire, and hopefully get the opportunity to go out into the world and become who you choose to become. For some, that's being a mother and a wife. For some, that's having a world renowned career. Whatever it is, you still need money to survive. You still need the basics, if not more than the basics. And the truth of the matter is, if most women live into their 80s or 90s, you're going to need a lot more than basics. And so, what I feel is most important for women is financial literacy and how not to have those limited beliefs, how to be empowered, how to have rights to your body, to have and make good healthcare decisions, how to have rights to your voice being heard so that you're not being shunned like other parts of the world. And sadly, even things are being attempted here in their own way. I mean, I don't think you're I don't think you're old enough, but anybody who's 50 or younger in your audience doesn't know it any different than up till now women having the rights to work, the right to love who you love, the right to, you know, get divorced or get married or have children in or out of wedlock, to have a career, to own your home, to have your own bank account. None of those things existed 50 years ago. And I'm not that old, but I was old enough to see my mothers and grandmothers and fathers and grandfathers fight for those rights. Fight for our rights to have voting rights, fight for our rights to have careers, fight for our rights to have our own bank accounts. And those are things that unfortunately have been really taken for granted. And those are not things to take for granted. And those are things that people just don't have an idea what that really means and the cost of that if we lose that.
It's truly an amazing thing. Even though that we don't discuss that as much, and we have made advances, and we don't hear much talk about it anymore. I do still feel it is a little bit lingering, but we've made progress.
Oh my God, so much progress. The amount of progress on the shoulders of others fighting for us to be who we are. For us to be sitting here right now, Cassidy, having this kind of a conversation is because of those people. It's 100% because of those people. To have the freedom to express ourselves is 100% because of those people. Yes, of course,
And
it's because of people who develop technology. Sorry, I didn't mean to. Yes, of
okay,
course, because of advancements of the reality of technology and all the things in that world, but it's way deeper. It's way deeper than that.
but you said they express themselves. It takes somebody speaking for these things to change. That is the biggest thing. Even if you're not the one actively doing it, you can still speak for them. They can speak for themselves. You can encourage other people. Um,
Yeah,
Felicia, it's
yeah.
been great having you on here. Is there anything you would like to add?
I was just going to say that, it doesn't, the speaking for yourself and speaking for others doesn't have to happen on large platforms. It can happen around a kitchen table. It can happen, at a picnic bench. It can happen in ways that can serve one another, to teach, to learn, to find communities that give you the courage to take those next steps to create momentum. And certainly, you know, I think that you and I have things that people can be offered. I certainly know that I have things that I'm happy to share, as well as yourselves, that can help people move their needles. I just dropped a book called Reclaim You. I have a freebie called Whisper to Power. Happy to share those things that help people move the needle, that supports the stuff that you're doing as well.
I really appreciate this little unconventional guest appearance. It's been great. And I will have her actually send over her links and information so I can add it below so you can be able to get in touch with her or myself. I'm sure y'all see Felicia again on one of the shows. It's been
It's
great having you.
Such a pleasure. God, what a gift. Thank you.
Thanks for listening to the Approach podcast. Don't forget to like, subscribe, leave a comment, and share this episode. Be sure you don't miss what's coming next. We're just getting this practice started. Check out the links below to visit theapproach.net. Connect with today's guest, explore their content, discover more episodes and resources, support the podcast, or learn how to become a guest or collaborate. Until next time, thanks for being a part of The Approach.